what should we do? Forerunners like Daniel. Forerunners who are out there trying to prepare the body of Christ. I consider disaster relief and coming up with a family plan and what should we have at home, how much food, how much water, how much what kind of supplies should we have there. That's Joseph planning ground zero. Joseph first planned, he knew he needed food. He knew he needed it, basically. And then he had to figure out, well, how can I store enough food for 8 years? And then he had to figure out, okay, I got to build silos. Well, he never built silos before, but he had to figure out how to build them. Had to hire the workers, go through the negotiations, get them built. And then after he got them built, then he had to fill them up. Egypt didn't produce all that grain. He bought it from all over the place. From all over the world, he bought grain. And he was buying it for a premium price. Probably many people at that time were saying, you ought to go sell some grain to this guy in Egypt. He doesn't seem to care how much he pays for it. See, Joseph got it all back. All of it, and then some. But then Joseph didn't have to just stop there. He had to figure out, okay, well, I figured out how to eat food. Okay, I figured out how to store it. Okay, now I've bought it. But now I got to figure out, how am I going to distribute this food? And how am I going to do it when everybody's runs out of money? What am I going to do? He had to start figuring out how to do alternative economies. Again, we remember his background. He didn't have a degree in international food distribution, nor did he have a degree in international finance, purchasing. He didn't have his securities licenses. Yet, that's who God chose to do all that. And so, God is beginning to download into people what to do. And the amazing thing is, it doesn't matter whether I go to Austin, or I head over to Kansas City, or I'm over in Florida, or I'm over in South Carolina, or I'm in Michigan, South Dakota, Iowa. Everywhere I go, people are hearing that. Or when they start to hear it, they're beginning to respond. And they know they need to do something. And you've got all these people getting ready for the what ifs. Years ago, when we started doing this, I never planned on being involved like I am now in disaster relief or teaching a FEMA certification course. I didn't even know what FEMA stood for. But I never planned on doing it. It took on a life of its own. I just more or less started walking in the path and the steps that the Lord kind of gave to me. And a whole bunch of other people seem to be walking in those steps too. And now what's happened between now and then is a lot of the people back in my neck of the woods over in Michigan, a lot of these men and women who have taken the course over the last year and a half that we've been teaching it, they're now actually in the coordinating positions of county emergency work, supporting both. Some of them are actually, that's become what they do. Some of it they're like maid volunteers on the boards. And all of a sudden, disaster relief and the taking care of the people in a disaster is now falling onto the shoulders of the church. That's not a bad place for it to be. And what's happening is people are stepping into these positions, because when it all does hit the fan, or a piece here or a piece there, when things happen, your county isn't going to rely upon the state capital to help you. They're not going to rely upon Washington to come and save them. They're going to rely upon their guys. And you know the neat thing is, you are their guys. You will be in a position to give provisions to people, and people to provisions. And you will know exactly what's going on, because you can't help them unless they tell you. And you will have access and ability to do things that the majority of the population doesn't. It is a holy setup by the Lord. I think it's so cool. See, I think that as we come together as I work with ADRN here in Austin, and we work with the disaster relief group over in Kansas City, and you've got a whole group of them forming now over in Florida, and then they've got a whole other disaster relief organization in South Carolina, and it's actually so many other places. Those are just the ones that I've touched that have decided we're all going to work together. We're going to be able to mobilize just between those groups right now. We can mobilize thousands of people to show up. Like that. There you go. Just like that. And the world's going to say, how can you do this? And it's going to be because we have a plan. And having a plan and being prepared and getting ready is so incredibly important. Because whoever has the plan, the people in that community, they're going to gravitate towards that plan. You know, is there anybody here who, are, on the school board or the township or the city or the council? So is there anybody in here? Or would you raise your hand here? Okay. We have a few? Was. Okay. That's good. I was too. Okay. Yeah. But here's the thing. You want to know how to be a leader? Show up to the meeting. Go to the meeting. Do you know how many people usually, what did you serve in? City Council at large. How many people came to the City Council meeting? 20 people. How many people live in Austin? Okay, well, how many people in Mishawaka? Okay. 20 people come. Okay? Now, I come from Allegan County, and the Allegan County Commission meetings and stuff like that. I was a county treasurer too. And, generally, there were 5. Maybe on a big day, 10. And there are, within the county of Allegan, 100,000 people living there. Now, whether you're on the township board, the city commission, the whatever it is, the same people in every community are all on the same boards because they're the only ones that show up for the meeting. And if you want to really be a leader, say something at the meeting. Okay? Really? And anything that you suggest, they'll vote on it for you to do it. That's the truth. Because you see, don't think they don't want you to come. They are sick and tired of listening to each other. They would love somebody else to come to the meeting. So you need to pray, God, am I supposed to go to the meeting? Because if you go there, are you going to affect it? Are you going to salt that meeting for Christ? You bet. You betcha. And so we've got to start coming to the meeting. Because the church has stepped out. Started stepping out with in Adam's day, okay? And it continued to yield over. You ever read that chapter in Samuel where they wanted a king and they didn't want to have judges anymore because they didn't want to fight the wars and they didn't have to worry about it and think about it. And if you read that chapter, it says 8 times, if you do this, the king will take, and they will take, and they will take, and they will take, and they will take. Just substitute government for king, okay? Because it's the same thing. And we know that's true. Government produces nothing. It consumes. So the thing that we have to begin to understand is God never intended it to be all that way. He intended for us to rely upon it. We're supposed to be ruling and reigning in the earth. Austin happens to be your responsibility and on your shoulders. And you should begin to go before the Lord and say, what am I supposed to do with Austin? And so, as we move in to the end times, we've got to look at that fig tree. As we begin to see those buds begin to form, we begin to see those leaves begin to come out, we know what's coming down the line. Okay? We know. And we can't ignore it. Anybody read Ezekiel 33? Raise your hand here who's read Ezekiel 33. What impressed you about Ezekiel 33?
Is that the part about God?
I think that's Ezekiel 39. But I don't, I always appreciate that Paul said somewhere it says. What impressed you about Ezekiel 33?
I'm sorry I can't tell you specifically on that chapter, but I know I have read it, so I don't have details.
Well, I won't keep putting people on the spot.
Dry bone.
Got dry bones in there.
Oh, that's a dry bone.
But you know something? What really impressed me is if you don't speak, the watchman on the wall see. And if we don't speak the thing that God has said to us to say to a person or a group, the blood of that person is on your head. That's scary, isn't it? Ever had that thing where God said, you felt like you were supposed to tell somebody something and you didn't? I don't ever want to feel that way again. So I take this position. God, if I'm wrong, you fix it. But I'm going to say what's on my heart. I want to say what's on my spirit. Because I don't want to have that person's blood on my head. It doesn't matter if they like me or dislike me because of it. The important thing is that they hear it. Okay? See, that's the one thing that we have to understand. Just because God tells us something, and we're supposed to tell somebody something, it doesn't mean necessarily we're supposed to do it. But we are supposed to say it. We're supposed to deliver it. And what it's God's responsibility to do something with it. He waters it, and He'll raise it up. Okay? But it's important that we deliver the thing that God has got in our heart, whether it's for one person, or a family, or a group, or an organization, or work, or whatever it is. We need to deliver it. David surrounded himself with men, the men of Issachar, who understood the times and knew what Israel ought to be. We need to be the people, wherever we are, in this case, Austin, that are going to tell Austin what Austin ought to do. That's the way it's supposed to be. All through the Bible, you had all kinds of prophetic people telling the king what he ought to do. And the king did not always appreciate hearing what he ought to do. But once they said it, then they did it. What would happen is God would bring about the thing that he said. There'd be consequences one way or another. If they listened, good consequences. If they didn't listen, not so good consequences. But one thing's for sure, that we're supposed to be the watchmen. And you can't read through Matthew 24, 25, and Luke 21, and Mark 13, Joel and Revelation, and all the other books, without knowing that all kinds of things are coming. And we're probably going to be able to have great opportunity to exercise great faith. So, as we begin to move forward in these things, we need to come up with the plan that God has for us, for our family. We need to think about that. And then we need to think about those neighbors that live around us. How are we going to help them? And then we need to think about our church. How's our church going to factor into all these things? Do we want to sit here and huddle in these walls? Or do we want to get out? The church has spent so much time trying to get the people out there in here, when the real goal is to get the people in here out there. That's the goal. And we don't have to feel threatened. One of the things I've so appreciated about a lot of the churches in our area is they started working together in a lot of different things. And I found it difficult sometimes to figure out who belongs to who anymore. Because they all go to each other's functions. And so what ends up happening is it's kind of getting hard to figure out who belongs to who. That's a good problem. And the thing I like is they don't get fazed by the fact that there's various doctrinal differences. Okay? There's a lot of doctrinal differences out there. But when a disaster occurs, all these things just fall away. And everybody comes together. Now, it would be nice if a disaster didn't have to happen for that to occur. Right? It'd be nice if this could be the norm. And so I believe God is allowing people to spend less time finding all the differences and having problems with one another. And He's starting to just let the church begin to work together. Solidly. Together. And as we come together more and more, that's what people are going to say. Look at that going on. Look at that. Look at that. These guys, in the midst of all the shakings that are going on, these guys are confident. I don't know what it is they've got, but I want it. I need it. I don't know how to deal with all these things. And so we're being positioned on one hand, on a basic level, of being prepared for the things that are happening. And the same preparations that you're making, that you're hearing about, it doesn't matter what the disaster happens to be. It's the same. You need to prepare in all the same ways. It doesn't matter whether it's a physical disaster or a pandemic. It doesn't matter whether it's a terrorist act or a government, a government meltdown. It doesn't matter what it is. You still need to have certain things in place so that if you can't get things the way we've always known them, you'll be okay. And you might be able to help other people be okay. And if you have a way and a plan, all those people around you, they're going to follow you. They're going to follow you. Because they're looking for someone to lead them. We all want to have someone to be able to follow and lead. And today we have such a society that has so little leaders. They're even trying to take down the leaders of the past to make them sound less than what they really were. And so what we have to do is we have to rise above all these things. And we have to think in a different manner. We're all walking here on this earth, but we're not bound by it. Not at all. And so I believe as we move towards this, God is going to show us not only how to plan for having provisions at home, but He's also going to show us what to do economically. If our nation continues to do what it's presently doing, and if our dollar continues to be more and more eroded because we're printing all this money and we've got nothing to back it up, and the more we print, the less money our dollars are worth now, that can't just keep going on. They either need to stop and reverse the process, which they haven't before, or eventually it's going to come down on their head. It's just no other way. Now, we don't have to fear that, but we need to be aware of that. And what do you do in a situation like that?
Impeach.
Well, that would be an option. And, but there's only been a couple of impeachments that have almost happened, but they've been unsuccessful. But here's the thing. We should pray that God will raise up godly men and women to office. If ever there were a time where it looks like, just maybe, there could be a wholehearted and wholesale change, it could be in this next election. We've watched both parties have people in their party not make it by sizable amounts. And we've watched gatherings occur, 10, 15, 20,000 people all across the nation have gathered to say, we don't like the way that where this nation's going. And they were just, this happened through cities on tax day throughout the nation. These things were happening. These things were going on all over the United States. Now, I look at that as being extremely encouraging. And I think that just maybe God may get rid of a whole bunch of people and maybe bring some of his people in. Wouldn't that be something?
Amen.
Now, are there godly men and women in office today? Absolutely. Absolutely there are. And we need to pray for them. And so, you know, sometimes we worry about this bill and that bill. How many people get, you know, this bill, you know, there's been this bill that's been introduced in Congress or in the state. How many people get emails like that, like every other day? Right. Well, let me tell you a little bit something about that so that you don't worry too much about it. When a bill gets introduced, all kinds of bills get introduced that will never see the light of day, that will never get a hearing, and that will never go through a committee. They just go out there so that representative or senator can say, I did this because it's good for their district, or at least they think it's good for their district. But first a bill has to go through a committee. And the committee, if the committee simply has a hearing, doesn't mean the bill's going anywhere, unless they vote it out of the committee. So if you say, oh, this bill's had a hearing in this committee, did they vote on it? Well, no. Well, then let's say they might actually vote on it and vote it out of committee. Well, then if it does vote out of committee, then it goes to the House or the Senate floor, which it may never go anywhere else. But it sits there. And then what happens is if they finally decide to take a vote on it, and they vote on it in one of the houses, then it goes to the next house, or then back to the Senate, or whatever the case may be, and then it has to go through the whole process over again. So my question always is, has this bill had a hearing? Is this bill on the floor? Has it passed one house or another? Until it does, don't worry about it. The enemy would like us to be all worried about all kinds of different what-ifs and what things could happen. We got enough to worry and focus upon. We shouldn't worry. We should pray about it, but not worry about it. We should focus on the things that actually are happening, and not be concerned about all the things that might happen, could happen. Okay? And you know, you find out that certain people are saying certain things. You know, you worry about all these types of conspiracy things that are out there. I mean, are there conspiracies? Yeah. Are they all true? No. Are some of them true? Yeah. But again, that's not anything that we're supposed to be focused upon. So, what's happening today is not only is God moving in the hearts of the church to prepare, but he's moving in the hearts for them to prepare on the next levels too. He's downloading all kinds of ideas about alternative energies, other types of health care, different types of financial structures and ways of investment. All of these things they're out there today, and there's all kinds of options and choices that are available for people. And so as we go forward, all these things, you know, God said he was going to reveal the secrets of the ages for such a time as this. And so there are all kinds of different things that we can tap into and do. There's all kinds of energy devices that you could bring on site to put up. And some of them are being used in Haiti, and some of them can be used on different disaster sites. There's disaster housing, which is some pretty amazing housing systems. Some of the housing systems, they can fill up with water for a week and drain out, and you can move right back in because there's no drywall in it. And you just wash it out and move right back into it. They're 60 to 70% more energy efficient. They can be put up in 4 or 5 days with 4 or 5 people. You can buy them for $50,000. These things exist and are out there today. And see,